We really enjoyed ourselves making this picture. I don't know if you could tell when you watched the movie. And it was a flick that, you know, now that it's kind of done with its theatrical life and it's here on DVD, we have the perspective to look back and see what was accomplished with Clerks 2. And we got the best reviews we've gotten in years, which isn't saying much because, you know, one good review we would have gotten would have been 100% improvement on the reviews we got on Jersey Girl. But it was really well reviewed. Finally got the New York Times back on our side.
Yeah.
Did almost 5 times our budget at the box office.
Yeah.
And you know, there were, of course, there's always vocal minorities saying you suck, but generally people seem to feel like it stood shoulder to shoulder with the first Clerks, and some people felt it was the best film we've ever made.
Yep.
Which I guess isn't really saying that much either. But we love the movie. But sometimes when you're in the midst of making the movie, you can't, you know, it's just you're cruising forward on the volition of the project. You don't get to savor the moments of how it happened.
Yeah.
How did this come to be and whatnot? And that's where a DVD documentary comes into play. Some DVD documentaries, you know, they give you 20 minutes of a featurette. Fuck that. We here at View Askew tend to overcompensate for everything because our dick's very small. So we tend to make everything else.
That's everybody together.
Yeah, it's the whole fucking crew. We're all like this and
glue
shit.
all our penises
Imagine
together.
having that sword fight in your mouth, you wouldn't even notice. You know, you'd have 6, 7 guys fucking you in the mouth. You wouldn't even know.
Be like 12 raisins fluffing around.
Pretty much raisins you might even pick up. The only way you'd figure it out, you had a mouthful of semen afterwards. Where'd that come from? And then we'd all be like smoking a cigarette in the corner of the room. That's how we roll. So here is a 90-minute documentary about the making of Clerks 2 entitled Back to the Well, Clerks 2, in case by this point on the DVD weren't sure what the documentary was going to be the making of. We threw the Clerks 2 in there because it could be misleading. You might forget watching it going like, is this Fight Club? Trust me, nobody's going to mistake this picture for Fight Club. No. This is a documentary that Joey and Zach, the guys that did the train wreck, that they did. It is a fantastic piece. If you like what we do, you'll like it probably. And you'll also just enjoy seeing how it all came to be. See how the whole Clerks 2 thing came to life and sparked to life and how it was made and what happened for us to get into the theaters. Is pretty damn engrossing stuff. And you know, I like I said, awesome to sit there and watch stuff because I forgot things that happened.
Absolutely.
I was sitting there going, really? That was fucking Rosario Dawson was in the movie? You know, just everything goes by so quickly.
Yeah.
You don't really get a chance to process it. So watching this documentary, man, I was able to process. It was like going back in time. It was like jumping in the Wayback Machine. And I was Sherman and you were Peabody. A dog and his boy. You could be Sherman if you want.
No,
you could be
okay.
Peabody if you want.
No.
Dog with glasses. I just got glasses. Peabody's got the glasses.
I started contacts, so now I
That's this. So you gave up the right to be Peabody.
I did.
So no bitching from you. So jump on in the Wayback Machine and check out Back to the Well, Clerks 2. See how it all came to be. Now that I'm a grown up, I don't know. I think some people expect that because I said, oh, this is the last movie with these characters, that we're now not going to do comedies. We'll still probably do comedies, but they just won't feature the same characters. It won't be set in the same universe. It won't be a Jay and Bob appearance anywhere. I think I'll probably wind up doing stuff like Chasing Amy, which is a mixture of comedic and the serious or the dramatic, because that's the kind of stuff I'm really interested in. That's the kind of stuff I really dug. In post on Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is where we're kind of done with the Jersey movies, kind of came to the fore. Because it was getting harder and harder to clean Jason Mewes up in advance of every film.
Kevin was gonna put the kibosh on the characters because of my drug use and how hard it was to, you know, get me sober and all that stuff, the whole process of it. And
we had fights, and it was just heartbreaking. Like, the dude was just too dialed in to heroin. At that point, I started talking very openly about this is it. This is the last View Askewniverse movie. We're shutting it down. It seems like a great idea to go out on a Jay and Silent Bob movie. You know, the guys had always been in the background of every movie suddenly had their own feature. And so we're done after this.
I guess I agreed with them. Definitely, I understood why he was saying that and why he'd want to do that, because it was a pain.
And at the end of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, we went so far as to have, after the end credits, God standing there, comes out to like this big View Askewniverse Bible, and then she closes it and, you know, dances off. However, even when we were shooting that, I always kind of left in the back of my mind like I might want to revisit this territory because I love those characters that populate the Askewniverse. They're my characters, of course I love them. And I always wanted to leave a back door. So if you look at the book, there's a bookmark in it. And the page that it was open to that she closes is right in the middle of the book. So yes, she closed the book, but there's, you know, this much more to go.
It's funny because you take that one moment, you take Jersey Girl and try to pick apart why it led into Clerks 2, and I think there's a lot of reasons. It was the first movie that we sort of made outside of our way of doing things. Like, there's a lot of things that we didn't do our way. You know, we had an Academy Award-winning director of photography. We had big-time celebrities.
The equal part of the equation of making the movie, aside from telling a great story or something that's real close and personal to your heart, is the experience of making it with all these people and getting along and like chumming it up and having a great time. And Jersey Girl wasn't that. There were so many issues dealing with that movie, and you were dealing with egos too, and it was just like,
On that movie, we kind of not only were making something that was trying to be a little bit more commercial, but we also made it under the circumstances of how people do that. We sort of sit out on the fringe a little bit. I don't think we sort of are nestled comfortably into the Hollywood sort of movie-making scene. We do things a little bit differently. We make movies that don't appeal to everyone in the world.
so we wound up making Jersey Girl for $35 million. It only grosses $25 million, which is disappointing. It's not a flop, but it's disappointing. But we followed the $6 million grossing Gigli, you know, which was a tough uphill battle because that movie was so roundly hated and despised and mocked and shit like that. It was like the new Ishtar.
I think it got away from us, you know? And I think that's the worst feeling that came out of it.
And, you know, I don't bear any malice or ill will toward Ben and Jen. It wasn't their fault. They didn't want to fucking torpedo the flick. They wanted to see it do well. We all loved the movie. But at that point, I was just like, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to make a movie where the tabloids are seizing upon the backstory of who fucked who on the movie and not talking about the movie itself. Like, the movie was almost an afterthought.
You know, we had a hard time defending our position because there was so much money out there and we just got squashed and just kicked around and beat up.
Like I said, some people could bag on the flick, but like, spent 2 years of my life making that flick and it really meant something to me.
If you look at Jersey Girl, it's like a bunch of things happening at once. One, we're making a movie under circumstances we don't normally make movies, and I don't think that was a good thing. I want to quit because I'm exhausted. Kevin's closed the door on the view of Askewniverse, and all the shit that happened just sort of brought everything to a screeching halt where you stop and you go, all right, well, what the fuck am I gonna do?
While we were in post on Jersey Girl, Harvey Weinstein came and watched the movie and loved it, and he said to me, like, we have this Green Hornet movie, and I know you like comics. Do you want to direct it? And I was like, whoa, nobody had ever offered me something, you know, like that before. It was pretty huge, a comic book movie.
I felt like Kevin wanted to do it for all the right reasons because he was a fan of the character, because he had a great take on the material. He kept it really fun, but also, you know, wrote really smart characters. And
The license was coming up, so they needed to get a movie started.
And I was excited, and they were excited, and everyone was excited. Kevin
Sort of started focusing on Green Hornet.
And then when the dust settled, I was sitting there going, I don't want to make this movie.
I think at the time he was concerned that it was just going to be too big, and also coming off of Jersey Girl, he was pretty specific about wanting to do something small next.
There were discussions about just like, you know, doing a movie of that size and sort of jumping into that sort of arena.
The scare that he put into me, and it was a true scare, was just like, this ain't our movie, dude. Like, at the end of the day, it's a movie by committee. And like, no matter what you do, like, you're gonna have to answer to fucking people over you because the budget is 50 to 70 million bucks. You know, any personal flourish you want to put in there, if they feel like it's going to fuck with the marketability of the movie or fuck with an audience's ability to appreciate it, is going to go away. And I don't know if I could tell a story like that, at least a story that I would like to tell and have it still be mine, maintain a sense of authorship. I said yes because it was flattering, but like, in retrospect, I have no interest in making this. That was also bolstered by the fact that Mosier had no interest in producing it.
This is going to be about us listening to a bunch of people as opposed to the opposite, which is a bunch of people listening to what we want to do.
And without Mosier on board, it made it even less appetizing to me.
After this much time together, I think it would be pretty hard for Kevin to jump onto a movie with a completely brand new producer.
And so I called up Harvey and I was like, you know what, dude, I'm just gonna write Green Hornet, I don't wanna direct it.
Sam Raimi or Chris Nolan coming on to do Spider-Man or Batman were guys who really knew how to embrace the genre for what it was, and I thought Kevin would also, and I think that the size of it scared him.
Still, at the end of it, I had no interest in directing it. But what I really wanted to write was Clerks 2. Like, I had it in my head. So post Jersey Girl, I knew I wanted to do Clerks 2. And I was thinking about making, you know, like a $500,000 version of it. You know, real cheap, guerrilla style, kind of like the first one. And I think the first person I told about it was Mosier. And I told him about it the day we went to church prior to the theatrical opening of Jersey Girl. This is the parking lot where it all happened. This church parking lot is kind of historic because we went to, last time we went to church together, it was right before Jersey Girl came out.
Yeah.
We do it once before we start shooting, we do it once after we're done, before the flick comes out.
Yeah.
So me and Moj go to Mass one day before Jersey Girl hits theaters, which, I'll tell you something, it didn't help, Lord. So anyway, when we're coming out is when I believe that I first mentioned, hey man, would you want to do a sequel to Clerks? Mosier kind of sparked to it a little bit.
It was a total reaction. You know, what we were talking about was doing something that was a complete, you know, 180 from what we'd done before.
Like the idea of making something small where he wasn't going to be dealing with studio politics.
I was kind of looking to do something different. Like, I would rather do so, and it kind of sounded like fun.
This conversation's important because at this point, Mosier was kind of like done. Jersey Girl was a swan song, and Mosier was like, I just don't want to make movies anymore. I want to go out and walk the earth, and I want to travel and shit like that. You know, he just kind of burned out.
So I left when Jersey Girl was wrapping out. I went to Prague to meet my girlfriend, and then I went to Lisbon, Portugal, and I went down to the beach in Portugal. I went to Barcelona. That was like 3.5 weeks. And I went to Australia for 2 weeks, and I went to New Zealand for 4, and then I went to Fiji for a week, which was nice.
Nobody goes to film school going, I want to be a producer. Like, we both went to film school wanting to make movies, right, and direct movies, or at least direct movies. And by the way things fell out, like I wrote Clerks first, we made Clerks, and suddenly we were off and running. And it never gave Moj the opportunity to kind of kick back and do what he went to film school to set out to do. Instead, he was thrust into the role of producer.
I just got so worn down. Like, it was me not sort of empowering myself to make that balance. And it was like every time things would, you know, if you really look back, like every time things would get super out of balance, I just wanted to go.
So for years I was trying to like fucking hold on to a big bad way. And so it was like we'd get into these periods, and they were heartbreaking periods for me. You know, now of course with hindsight it's very clear to see, but at the time I just felt like, don't fucking leave. Like, if you told me you were gonna leave, I wouldn't have fucking started making movies with you in the first place. Like, to me, in order to make a movie, certain key ingredients have to be there. I gotta write it, and Moj has to be there. And then that's pretty much the 2 ingredients. But the main 2, you know, as you'll see from flick to flick, the things that have never changed is I write them, and Moj is always there as the producer. the idea of making Clerks 2, where he's like, well, I know Brian and Jeff, those dudes aren't difficult, and you and Muse aren't difficult, like that's appealing to me. So we started talking about doing that.
The relationship with Kevin and Jeff and all that stuff wasn't so simple as to just assume that it would all come together. And not to say that Brian would do anything, but you know, everyone kind of knew that Brian O'Halloran would be ready to do it, and he'd probably be into it.
It was when we were working on the Clerks X DVD, the Clerks 10 DVD. It was during that he told me that he was thinking about doing it and what I thought about that.
But Jeff was the one that, you know, we'd had strained relationships in the past. When the first one had come out, there was a couple issues here and there.
So one day I went to see him, and I said, hear me out on this, because I know your first reaction is going to be negative, but what I'm thinking about doing.
I think my head started doing this before he even finished the sentence.
Is a Clerks sequel.
Don't do it, don't do it. And he was kind of surprised. He's like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, don't do it.
Because Jeff had a difficult time, I think, with being Randall post-Clerks and whatnot, because he's very recognizable, his voice is very recognizable and whatnot. And, you know, I think there was a period he went through where, you know, he hated the fact that he played Randall, with everyone being like, you were in that movie and shit like that.
I mean, what are we gonna do? We're gonna be down at the store again, and I just think it's gonna rub people the wrong way that, you know, we're older now. I've got a belly. I don't want to do it. People are gonna hate it and they're gonna riot, and all my nice letters are gonna dry up, and I'm gonna get, hey asshole, stop trying to do the same thing. Your funny little walk don't fly.
He had that look on his face of like, oh man, can't you get away from these fucking Clerks, dude?
And you know, when he was asking me about Clerks 2, he was like, well, the reason I want to do it is I really have something to say. And I really feel like I have a story to tell with this movie. I think the last time I heard him saying that was Jersey Girl.
For me, this movie wasn't about money. It was about telling the story. It was about making this film. It was about going back to a certain place in my life and kind of taking another look, you know, at something, at the person I was then, the person I am now, via these characters.
And it's about being 30 and still not finding your way. A subject I could relate to, a little.
And I said, well, you know what, let me just write the script and then we'll discuss it then. But I just need to, before I start writing, there's no point in me starting to write, I said. If you aren't interested at all.
I said, I'm not absolutely opposed to it, but I'm at about an 80-20. And the 20 is saying yes and the 80 is saying no. You know, I was driving home from that lunch and I was like, Jesus, he seemed pretty hyped about doing Clerks 2, and I hope I didn't totally deflate him, because I'm interested in reading it just as a fan. I want to know what these clowns are up to, you know, 10 years later.
He had to write the script at that point.
And there were certain things I knew were going to happen in the movie. It was going to open with the store being on fire. And it was going to be a catalyst for the story. Like the thing that kind of made them face the future was watching their past kind of burn. I wanted the Talking Heads song, Nothing But Flowers, to open the movie. I knew there was going to be a big dance sequence, and I knew the last shot would pull back from them and go from color to black and white. And I knew at the end of the movie, they would own the quick stop. Like they would be back in the store. The journey would take them from the store to the store. I basically knew the beginning and the end, and I just needed to fill in everything in between.
And originally it was going to be a movie at the Boardwalk in Seaside Heights, New Jersey, which is like you know, like carnivals.
Mosier and I talked about it. He's like, look, Seaside Heights, a very big place, sprawling place. Getting everyone on board, because each booth is independently operated, is going to have to be difficult. Maybe you should shrink it down. I said a side kind of thing I had on the movie, a side location, like a backup, would be the dudes working at a Movies. And he was just like, what, the fast food joint? I said, yeah. And he's going, that's kind of interesting. Then at one point, I took off to Vegas, and I would write all day, and then play blackjack with Brian at night. And Jen comes out, you know, at a certain point, middle of the week, so I was there for like 7 days. And then I distinctly remember writing the rest of Clerks 2, laying on the bed on my stomach on my laptop while Jen was out in the living room.
He would lay on the bed and write for hours, and he would throw things out to me, and I wouldn't laugh. When he throws like donkey show out, I'm like, really? Like, really? Are we doing that now? All right.
And so I stayed like another 2 days to finish the script and came out and was like, I'm done, let's go. And so we went back home and whatnot, printed it out, gave it to Mosier.
When I finally read the script, I called him up and I said, look, you can't do this for a couple $100,000.
So Mosier was like, look, I'm in for it, but I don't want to do it for no $500,000. We can just find a budget that's sensible, something like $5 million or something like that.
Well, let's spend an amount of money that's as cheap as possible, but at the same time, like, gives us the opportunity to do some stuff. Well, not necessarily a crane every day and all the rest of it, but like have more stuff than we did on the first one, and equip ourselves in a way where we could try to go out and be like, look, we're obviously not the same guys who made the first one. I mean, we are, but we're not. We're those guys 12 years later, 10 years later, you know, who've been doing it for a while, and you know, we can't make the same movie again. It's just impossible. I mean, we would have had to make an effort to do that, to try to redo that.
So it put us in this comfy position of being able to do the movie exactly the way we wanted, with exactly the people that we wanted to use, i.e. Dave, i.e. Brian and Jeff, you know, stuff like that. Whereas never would have had that same experience on Green Hornet. And you don't get that same experience on movies. The more the budget goes up, the more control you give up. John Gordon was our production exec, and Harvey and Bob were still in charge at Miramax at this point. John Gordon fucking loved the script. You know, he got it right away.
It was great. It was so funny. It was Kevin, you know, going back to what he started doing, and it really felt like it was evolved, and you could feel that he really had his heart in it from what you read on the page.
Ironically, as much as John Gordon loved the script, I was like, what do you think Harvey's gonna say? He's like, Harvey's gonna dig it. Harvey read the first draft of the script, and he said, he told John, he's like, I think you're fucking crazy. He's like, I don't think it's very good.
I had read it, and I called him and told him how funny it was, and so I guess like a day went by, and he called me and said, I think Harvey said, I don't think you and I have the same taste anymore. I was crushed.
He's going, it takes about 50 pages to get going. And it's, I don't know, it's just two dudes sitting around talking.
And that's not what he expected from the sequel. And Kevin said, well, I think that's what everybody's going to expect from the sequel, since that's what the first movie was.
So Harvey wasn't on board, and Harvey was like, you know, this script needs a lot of work, and he was making suggestions where he was like, you know, you need to show these dudes in high school, do like a flashback sequence. And I'm like, this movie is so not that fucking movie. Like, flashback sequence is something you get away with on Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
There was a disconnect. I don't know what it was, which actually really didn't seem to bother Kevin that much.
The Miramax Weinstein Company, at that point, as they were almost both, was basically like, he's got to finish this draft before we start financing you.
I did another pass on the script where I wrote nothing new. All I did was take out about 15, 20 pages or something like that.
It did keep the momentum of the story going, but you know, I think that stuff would have ultimately come out. If it didn't come out in the script, it would have come out in the cutting room.
We got the message back from Harvey calling himself this time, going like, this is amazing. You know, you did the work and it really shows. This film kicks ass. And I didn't have the heart to tell him, dude, it's just 20 pages shorter than the thing you fucking read, you know? But sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes, you know, by compacting things or kind of keeping the good parts closer to one another, it reads completely differently to some people. To me, it just felt like the same movie, only shorter. But whatever, they were on board at that point. I got it to Jeff, and I said, let me know what you think. And so I'm waiting on pins and needles to hear what he thinks about the script.
I did like the script, and when I read it the first time, I was like, all right, you know what? Kevin kept telling me, trust me. I know what I'm doing here. It's going to be good.
And he finally called me back, and he was just like, I got to tell you, dude, this is pretty fucking funny. And he was going through the stuff that made him laugh, and he's going, but more than that, he's going, it's pretty good.
My reservations were alleviated, and I was like, yeah, he did a good job with it. It went a lot better than I thought it was going to go, but I still wasn't sure if I wanted to do it.
Hollywood or movies have not necessarily had a history of like you know, sequels sort of, especially years later, being the best thing in the world for the first movie.
My name is Anakin. My shitty acting is ruining Saga.
Anthony Bresnikan, who was writing for the Associated Press at that point, wanted to do a piece on the 10th anniversary of Clerks. And so I said, well, fuck it, it's an AP piece, it's a wire piece, it goes out to all the national newspapers, anybody picks it up. I said, I'll do it here, I'll drop dime here that we're gonna do Clerks 2 next.
I think a lot of people's first reaction to a sequel to Clerks had to have a certain level of skepticism.
Enlighten us.
And at that point, we were calling it The Passion of the Clerks. There was massive resistance to the title. Everyone thought the title was stupid and jokey title, and they were right. And there were a lot of people who put 2 and 2 together and said, well, Jersey Girl flopped, and so he's running back to the familiar territory.
That's just people saying like, well, if I ever made a movie that became a cult hit and blah, 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 I wouldn't fucking make a sequel to it. And it's like, well, number one, you're not really presented with that choice until you make that first movie.
The funniest thing I read was people going like, oh, he's just doing it for the money. I'm like, motherfucker, if I wanted money, I would have made Green Hornet.
The easy way out would not to be to do it. Because number one, it's like, he already said he wouldn't do it, so he's already got to eat crow about that. And two, it's not the easy way out because it is the movie where, more so than anything that we've ever made, that people would be like, what are you doing? Why fuck with that?
Sure, I am going back to the well, but that's not to say you can't draw fresh water.
Look at the Star Wars sequels.
Star Wars geek.
It's like all these motherfuckers are so goddamn fucking excited. They're pissing their pants and fucking putting on their fucking lightsaber belts and shit like that.
There's only one return, okay? And it ain't of the king, it's of the Jedi.
And then the movie comes out and they're all pissing and moaning about it, about what it is. So it's like, what's the fucking point of reviewing the idea? What's the point of reacting to like, yes, they're gonna make another one when, or fuck them, they're losers because they're making another one. Because in the end, it's like, it's the movie that you have to react to.
Francis Ford Coppola went back to the well, and he produced Godfather 2. He also later on produced Godfather 3, so perhaps a third visit to the well. Maybe not in order.
Which in the end, Godfather 3 was nominated for Best Picture.
Every step of the way, with every movie we've made, I've always followed my very fucking prodigious gut. Like, I just kind of go with the gut, and the gut told me, like, a movie about Dante and Randall is where you need to be right now.
Fucking A.
The original cast is back. Jeff as Randall, Brian as Dante, Jane, Silent Bob, Kevin, and Jay. But those are the only characters, essentially, that come over from the old movies. Jennifer Smith, Kevin's wife, is playing one of the characters.
Everyone that we know would be a part of it in some way. And so I really did beg my way in, and just no dignity whatsoever, just straight out begged.
Another guy, Trevor, who was in Jeff Anderson's movie, and Kevin had seen that and kind of wrote the part with him in mind.
Kevin saw me in Jeff's movie in 2002 and liked my performance, evidently, for some reason.
We originally were like, no stars, we don't want any stars. And there was a certain amount of pressure applied by the studio who's financing it to give them a couple names.
From a commercial standpoint, I think he was just trying to, to show that the movie was not just a small little comedy, but had the ability to break out beyond that.
When you do that is you do a list of names, just everybody writes down a list of names.
Before he even got to the list, though, he was like, I met with Bryce Dallas Howard. And I was like, right on, what was that like? He's like, she's a huge fan of yours. We were talking about, the movies that we do here, and she brought up Clerks and Chasing Amy, and she likes your movies. I was like, that's flattering. He's like, so you should meet with her. She's who you should talk to about Clerks 2. So I sit down with her and whatnot, and I brought a copy of the Clerks 2 script with me, and I gave it to her, and I was like, right on, man, let me know what you think. And I guess she read it, and she was, I guess it might have been a little too bracing for her.
And she passed on it. So next we went to Ellen Pompeo, who at that point had Grey's Anatomy in the can, and they were waiting for it to come out, so we went out to her.
I'd seen her in some episodes of Law & Order. I'm a huge Law & Order fan. And I really liked her, and I liked her look, and she seemed kind of like believable, like, maybe she would fuck Dante.
And she seemed interested, but I think everyone was getting this anticipation that the show was going to take off. And I don't know exactly what happened, but she ended up moving on.
There was a conversation about Liv, and actually Kevin talked to Liv about it, and Liv had just had a baby. And she said, I can't say things like ass to mouth. And she, she had like a 3-week-old at home.
So then there became a list of people, and there was a list of 5 or 6 people. And one of them, there was Sarah Silverman.
And she was like, if you were offering me the part of Randall, I would do it in a heartbeat, like, because that's the fucking part she's going. But I just don't want to play the girl in the movie now. Like, I'm trying to go in a different direction. And I was like, I got it.
And then we're just like, fucking, and there was a list, and Rosario Dawson was on it, and Rachel Weisz.
Yeah, there was Rachel Weisz. That was never happening.
And Rosario Dawson was on the list. And we were just like, dude, Rosario Dawson ain't gonna do this fucking picture. Not in a fucking million years, man.
There's no fucking way she's gonna do it.
Because Rosario does classy pictures. She doesn't do Passion of the Clerks.
My manager and my agent went into the office and read the script. They brought the script actually over to my house because I was doing the play and I had like no hours. So they brought it over, they were like, you have 3 hours. It was like, code, they have 3 hours to read this and we'll be back.
When the script finally got to her, I was just like, oh, fucking, how quickly will she, decide not to do it?
You never know how anyone's going to react, especially when, I think when you're a name actress and you get a script and you read it and you think, okay, well, who are the actors I'm going to be acting opposite in this movie? And it's 2 actors that really nobody knows. You may be a little hesitant to do the movies. I
remember when I first started reading it, there was all this, I didn't know which character I was being offered. So I was kind of just like going, okay, I guess a chick. So I'm like reading for the chick. And there's this character, Emma, and in the beginning, and there's all this dialogue about having an enlarged clit. And I was like, whoa, how am I gonna read this? Like, I was just, an automatic thing was like imagining my dad watching this movie and just going, because I know he'd love to watch it, and just going, wow, within the first 5 minutes, I'm talking about having like an enlarged clit. How do I make this read?
We thought she'd get to the porch monkey scene and just be like, shred that fucking thing.
What's the big deal? Since when is it a crime to say porch monkey?
I was reading along and kind of going, this is really good, it's really well written, but when the donkey show came in, I was like, this is my opportunity to see a donkey show. This is a yes, this is not even no-brainer, this is amazing.
She fucking said she wanted to do it, and so, which is great, but like, I thought there wasn't a chance in hell.
I really felt like Rosario was so much better than Bryce. And not like they're not good actresses, but just in terms of the character of Becky, made more sense than Bryce, than Ellen, than Sarah, because she just had this East Coast feel to her. She's a New Yorker, and she just had this East Coast feel to her that I thought would blend really well with Becky. I like doing the rehearsal with the actors at the location as much as possible because A, that's where we're gonna spend a majority of the movie. It felt like, man, we can kind of get a run through. Like we can kind of do like a dress rehearsal of the whole thing, so to speak. And run through the scenes and not like stop and be like, do that again. Just kind of run through all the scenes and kind of showing people who were interested, some of the keys, what they were in for.
Even though the location hadn't been built yet or painted or anything, like it was just kind of like a skeleton inside, we could still plan out our blocking. And we started with with the scenes that we knew were going to be particularly tricky to pull off. One of the scenes was my entrance.
He's going to come in, Jeff's going to meet him at the door, they're going to head behind the counter.
Ow. Dude, how old are you?
I'm 19, Randall. You wouldn't work for me last week because you said working on my birthday helped me build a character.
Why the fuck are you still getting rides from your mother? And even worse, what the fuck are you kissing her goodbye for? What is she, your fucking prom date?
When you watch the movie, it doesn't play as that complicated, but it actually was like quite a few shots because you got to get coverage on everybody and so forth.
Dude, the Transformers sucked.
No, they didn't. They were more than meets the eye.
Too defensive, bring it down to the filter.
No, they didn't. They were more than meets the eye.
But I have to have it memorized before I begin. Even in like rehearsals, I think when we did the first rehearsal, I was 95% had the entire thing memorized.
That dude can move around and see what he's gonna do, with his hands or whatever when he's actually performing in the scene.
It's the belly bump.
Late that night, I awoke from my sleep, hearing.
Let's do it again.
And showing up on the first day in rehearsal and like Jeff being completely off book actually ended up being like, oh my God, these people are like beyond. I need to like be off booking tomorrow because this is crazy. This is gonna be really intense.
Guys, do you ever go ass to mouth?
You never go ass to mouth. It's really smart dialogue and everyone's very present to all of it. We all know exactly what we're doing and we're pushing it as far as we could because we can. And I think it's really wonderful to be a part of that because it's a very intelligent process.
The positive of doing a lot of rehearsal is that it smooths out all those performances so that everything kind of has the same lived-in quality.
What the fuck?
Can I talk to you?
Yeah, we were just,
You're your first child.
Be a masculine child.
Randall!
What? She was sweating me. It just slipped out.
Oh, shit! You swung at me!
You ducked?
Because you swung at me.
Damn it! Okay!
If you ever connect with that.
It's easier for me to kind of do that kind of thing in a room where there are very few people. So if I'm doing it with the actors, we're all kind of figuring it out together. If I wait and do it on the day, with the whole crew there standing behind me, waiting, I feel like, man, they're gonna realize that I suck at this job if they see me trying to figure this shit out. So we're going to church. You know, I'm not one of those shove Jesus down your throat people, but like, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus. You know, I'm a fairly spiritual person, even though I make very potty-mouthed little movies. I used to go more frequently. But that Mosier Goes It All is amazing, because Mosier is an avowed agnostic. Would you still consider yourself agnostic, or are you just a flat-out atheist now?
No, I'm an agnostic.
And so I feel like if I drag an agnostic to church with me twice over the course of a production every other year, then, I don't know, that's extra good mojo for the flick. Get in there, do an hour, say a couple prayers that we have a smooth, clean production. You know, just like, well, see what you can do, Lord. So there it is. God willing, God has blessed our production. Although after this, I'm not so sure. I don't know if I'd call it cold feet, but I was just suddenly, for the first moment, the negativity of the people like on the internet who were like, what a stupid fucking move, blah, 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 kind of got to me. Why are we doing this? Man, how do we fucking top this? And that's where the title of the train wrecks for the video blogs came from, because I was like, fuck it, let's just acknowledge that this is a potential train wreck in the making.
But I am happy to hear that Kevin was struggling with the idea of doing a sequel beforehand, because, you know, I always said that I wasn't thrilled about doing the sequel. But the thing that always got me was Kevin was so damn solid on it. He was like, we're gonna do it, we're gonna make it better, it's gonna be cool, we're gonna do this, 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 and he was so damn confident about it. That's the reason I jumped on board and wanted to do it.
And that lasted, it wasn't even a full week, it was a few days, and it culminated with the night before we started shooting, when I was down in Buena Park in my motel room, and I'd set up my TV and my DVD player, and I actually, for the first time in eons, watched Clerks. And I went back to the place where I made the movie, in terms of like where I was in my head and in my heart, and I was just like, no, I'm in the exact right place, like where I need to be in order to make Clerks 2. This is a totally good idea, and this movie honors the first movie, and it doesn't try to be better than it or worse than it or even equal to it. It just tries to be its own fucking movie that happens to carry those characters and the scenario over a little bit.
Day one.
Day one.
Do we have a better chance?
Day one.
I mean, I got there was sweat running down the steering wheel, and it wasn't from the LA traffic. It was like, I should fucking turn around. How far is Tijuana? I should have never fucking agreed to do this.
We came down last night to stay at the hotel. Beautiful.
We get the roll out of spots. Me and Kevin are gonna sleep here.
We haven't rolled a frame of film yet, but boy, is it
I have.
feel good. You have.
I don't fucking
None of that will be usable in the finished film.
No.
Day one, we started with Brian and Rosario in the back office. You know, Jeff didn't work that much. He just kind of came in and out of the room once or twice. So it was kind of like, let's get the big chunky scene out of the way first, the one where it's just all dialogue between two people. We were shooting that scene, and they were trying to hide the nail polish.
Cleaning products? We have cleaning products? Huh.
Then he comes back in one of the takes, and he goes,
"What smells like shoe polish? Ew."
We got to the end of the take, and I was like, dude, you said shoe polish.
Got it. Cut! I don't know, but nail polish, nail polish.
You know what's funny is I was looking right at it, too. I was like, what smells like shoe polish? And I'm looking right at the thing. I was having Clerks flashbacks, I guess. I guess I was freaked out by the whole thing. Say so. I was still freaked out day one on the set.
Even though 13 years, I think, had gone by at that point, the dude was still fucking dialed into shoe polish in the last movie.
I don't know what it is, but like, you know, A, I'm not much of an actor, but I get nervous on camera. And like that first day, and I always get nervous when I'm working with Kevin for some reason. Here's, you know, fucking Silent Bob, for Christ's sakes. I've known him since 9th grade. What the fuck am I nervous around this guy for? But I get nervous around him, it's weird. But that first day, and it takes me a while to sort of settle down from the camera.
I remember it being a good day. I remember it was a good feeling, like the crew was getting along, cast was getting along. It was kind of cool.
Ready and action.
Fucking post monkey. God! Hold on, man. I'm coming. Baby, can I get a french fry? This is my wife.
My husband.
Yeah, man, I was gonna leave her, but I need her half on the rent, plus she got the health care.
It's just a little part. It's not like, you know, if the script's up that, you know, I had anything to lose. That have been like, boy, Wanda Sykes really fucked up that movie.
Did you say cockstain? What the fuck is cockstain?
I don't know, that's some white freaky stuff. White boys get white women to do everything. You wanna do a cockstain? When you losing weight like you're a hostage, you like hell with what you think. Racism don't have no taste.
Yes.
We out of here like last year.
I went into the editing room and I had 2 days worth of footage that I could finally work on. And I was like, you know, I'm just gonna cut one scene and see how I feel. And I cut one simple scene. I was like, you know, I'm gonna cut another one and see how I feel. And I got into it. And those scenes were the Dante and Becky in the office. And then there was one other scene, I forget what it was, but that was a quick one. And then I heard a knock at the door, and I opened the door, and it was fucking daylight outside. And it was one of the PAs going, they want you on set to block out the first shot. And I was, good God.
And his hair was all fucked up. He had bags under his eyes, and I was like, holy shit, that bastard just realized we shouldn't be doing this either. And he was like, no, dude, I've been up all night editing. Come see what I've done. I went in and I watched the scene. It was the scene with Brian and Rosario in the office.
Well, hello, Miss Scott.
Well, here he is, the escape artist.
So I show them the scene, and it was, I got 3 different reactions out of them. The first one was from Brian, which was really satisfying because he was like, oh my God, I can't believe you made me look good in that scene. He's like, I come off really well, I come off like a pimp. Rosario was just like, man, I've never seen footage cut this early into a movie. Why don't more people do this? I was like, I don't know, but do you like it? She's like, I think it's great.
The energy and the chemistry between Rebecca and Dante is really great because it's based in a friendship that becomes something beautiful and more. And there's all these moments of like us kind of trying to catch each other's eye and not really, and those weird things when a friendship turns into something else.
Jeff though was like, he's like, dude, I'm gonna say this, and you gotta take it for what it is. Take it as truthful because I'm not even really in this scene that much.
And like when I saw it, I was like, wow, this looks good. I like the look of it. That's when I got excited about it.
And from that moment forward, when he watched that scene, like he was all for Clerks 2 in a big bad way. It became a big flag waver and also became my sounding board where I would cut scenes together, immediately pull him in and be like, what do you think, what do you think?
But, you know, that was day 4 on the set. It was fucking touch and go those 3 mornings before that.
Have it.
Oh, shit. She wants you to break it off with Emma and marry her?
No.
She's gonna tell Emma?
No.
Wait a second, then what's the problem?
There is a lot of movement in Clerks 2. Kevin and I never sat down and said, you know, we're gonna put this much movement in this movie. We never set out to move the camera just to move it, you know. I think because of the experience that he and I have now after, you know, not really working together, but working elsewhere with other people for 8 or 9 years, has just built camera movement into how we go about approaching our day-to-day work.
Now, over the years since Chasing Amy, with Miramax, every time out we go to make a movie, Dave was a sticking point for them, was a real issue.
If they wanted a big shooter, somebody who'd been around a long time, I hadn't been around that long. You know, I had like 3 or 4 movies that I'd shot. So who's gonna let that asshole, you know, shoot a $15 million picture or whatever it was?
In the interim of when we worked with him on Chasing Amy, he'd been working on stuff as well. He'd shot some other features and he'd worked on TV shows and whatnot.
I learned by doing, so I you know, cracked some teeth and made a lot of mistakes, but just learned what to do, what I do on the set.
Having me, Scott, Muse, Brian, and Jeff on the movie, it's like the only other person in that equation who was missing, other than the girls who weren't in the script, was Dave. And it's just like, you can't tell us we can't shoot it with Dave. Like, if we're gonna do it, we gotta do it with Dave. So finally, they let it go through.
Fuck out of here! Keep going back, it works if you work it! And you're worth it!
I just find it funny that he always writes these little bits of reality in there, like when he wrote the piece about the deployed airbag is true, and we're going to rehab because of that, because I got busted is true. Me and Sam Bob finally bought a car. We're cruising down to the boardwalk. Fucking Middletown cop pulls us over for suspicion of mischief.
What the fuck does that mean?
We were driving around with deployed airbag, and I got probation. Then I left state, violated probation by leaving the state and not checking in, and then I went back to Jersey, turned myself in, and got 6 months in rehab. We got 6 months and 2 days on the wagon as a good friend of Bill W's.
We were talking about this last night. This is the first movie that you've made completely fucking SLP, sir, Sober Living Pal.
It is.
Because on Clerks,
just drinking and smoking weed.
Mallrats.
Just drinking. Oh, well, drinking and smoking weed a little bit.
Chasing Amy.
I was on dope. Dogma, coke, and dope.
Jizzle and Bizzle.
Drinking, and at the last week I was on painkillers.
Jersey Girl.
I wasn't there.
Oh, because?
I was on drugs.
So this is the first
running
one.
from the law. That was at the very time. I was running from the cops even. I finally saw, like, all right, this is it. I need to stop. And went, you know, and like I said, I went and turned myself in, even though the consequences was maybe jail, which I never would want to go to jail. But at that point, I just was like, you know what? Maybe I need it. Maybe that's what it'll take. So I got lucky and I didn't have to go. So I did the 6 months in rehab instead.
Yeah, but if you're holding all the time, aren't you gonna be tempted to get high?
Oh, not with the power of Christ on my side, sir.
Jersey sucks, and we are surrounded by morons.
When I first hit up Schwalbach with the idea of doing Clerks 2, because I was supposed to do Green Hornet, And she was just like, oh, why would you do that?
I didn't want him to do Clerks 2 for the wrong reasons. I didn't want him to sort of fall back on the comfortable, the tried and true characters just because Jersey Girl was what Jersey Girl was.
And so she was really like just down on it, just like, ugh. And she got up on it when I was just like, well, I'm gonna put you in the movie. And she's like, really?
And Kevin took a world of shit from people for casting me again, especially the online community.
Generally, I'd cast friends all the time. And why wouldn't I cast my best friend, you know? I mean, which is a sentiment that got me laid when I put it that way to her. She was just like,
It's a fine line to cross when you get into that sort of space and you take a best friend and you become a lover and you move into that space. And so it's just interesting watching that happen because it's right at that stage.
I love you, Becky.
I'm pregnant, Dante. And it's been really fun and I'm glad that it's really working.
the shot where you're pushing in on Brian as Dante sitting there watching Rosario dance is a pretty beautiful shot, you know, like that. It's all there in his face, and we had to do it a few times, but like we got it. Like eventually I was just like, let's push in even slower. I said, Bri, I need you to like start, you know, just kind of grooving, but then just kind of settle into, I just want to see love on your face. I just want to see like you fall in love with this girl. And I don't think it was all that difficult for him because it was tough not to fall in love with Rosario in that moment, you know?
She just sparkles off the screen in this quite. It's not hard to fall in love with the character at all that she plays.
You know, I get criticized a lot for telling and not showing. People like, he tells, he never shows. You know, in film, you're always supposed to show, not tell. I felt like, wow, this would be a wonderful opportunity to kind of switch that around instead of, you know, having him kind of blah, blah, blah about how much he loves her. Showing that dude falling in love, showing her falling in love with that guy. And always meant to kind of communicate that feeling of what it's like when you're falling in love, revealing you're in love, that weird, wonderful moment. Never in a million years that I think I would do a full-blown musical number.
Get ready for some hardcore bestiality.
Interspecies erotica, fucko.
Interspecies erotica at its finest. Straight from TJ, I give you Kinky Kelly and the Sexy Stud.
So I didn't want to do a typical donkey show. Like, instead of like some chick, let's make it, you know, like a French bedroom farce where it's just like, you know, there's confusion. I just thought it was kind of funny, like the idea of him ordering up a donkey show, but it's not the donkey show that they were expecting. It was kind of, I thought it was kind of funny.
Ready and act. Kelly can be a guy's name too.
When I wrote the script and I gave the script to Mosier, I was just like, who do we get to play the donkey fucker? Who's that lucky soul gonna be? And I think it was Mosier who was like, what about Zach?
I can handle being known as the donkey fucker. I can kind of deal with that, which says a lot about my character. I wanted to clear it with a couple people who I knew it would primarily affect. My sister's quite a bit younger than me. She's in school.
It was one thing for him to walk around as the donkey fucker for the rest of his life, but he didn't want like his sister to have to deal with the fact that he was a donkey fucker. People being like, your brother's a donkey fucker, and she's like, oh God.
She said, you should do it. She goes, I'm not worried about it. She goes, it's funny, you should do it. Besides, I think she just wanted material so that she could kick me in the balls anytime she could.
Yeah, I don't know anyone else I've ever worked with who was like, I gotta clear it with my sister first, you know, that's rare.
If it wasn't for the donkey show, I don't think I would have said yes. I'm gonna show up and it's gonna be fucking awesome. There's gonna be a donkey with like a head mask on. Sweet.
It would have been fine to watch a chick suck off a donkey, but suddenly they're like, this is horrible. You know, as any human being with any animal is horrible, but like, it would have been passable or acceptable had it been a chick. Being that it was a dude, these dudes are just like frozen in terror and whatnot, with the exception of Elias. I'm sorry, Jesus. The spit shot, I mean, Johnson and I always thought this was funny for some reason. Just the notion of like the dude who's so angry and ready to fuck that he spits in his hand, lubes up his cock to get going, to fuck whatever.
So I'm drinking a latte, I'm drinking an orange juice, and it immediately fills my mouth with like the nastiest spit on the planet.
And the shot was sublime. It was so much better than I ever imagined it would have been because the spit went through Zach's fingers off the hand. So some spit went here, some spit went off, backed by this purple lighting scheme. It couldn't have been better. Like, I saw that shot and I fucking cried. It made me laugh so hard.
Well, what the fuck you waiting for? That's your cue, man.
After the donkey show is busted up by the cops, our main characters are put in a holding cell. You know, Randall fucking tells him that he doesn't want him to go, and some emotional shit going on in there.
Specifically put it at the end because it's 10 pages of fucking dialogue. I think it was 11 pages of dialogue, you know, of two dudes yelling at each other, essentially, with the weightiest dramatic stuff in the movies.
And we had kept talking about this idea that the movie kind of doesn't really fall into a pattern that people can anticipate. Like, it's kind of like doing its own thing and going right when people think it might go left.
And Mosier at one point said to me, like, I'm thinking you might want to take another look at the jail scene. I said, yeah, why? And he's just like, I don't know. He's going, it just feels weird having Silent Bob suggest that they reopen the Quick Stop.
He should not provide the answer because that's what people expect. It's, you know, it's like the bait and switch where it's like everyone expects Silent Bob to say the fucking thing at the end of the movie. In this case, he's just like, I don't know.
I got nothing. Then I struck upon the idea of like, wow, it'd be fucked up if like Randall was the one that said we should buy the Quick Stop and reopen it. So I wrote that scene, and the way it played out was, you know, Dante backs him into a fucking corner yelling at him, and Randall's like, blurts out, I'd buy the Quick Stop and reopen it myself. And he blurts it out. Like, he didn't even think about what he was saying. And then Dante looks at him, and Randall's like, oh my God, yes. Yes, that's what I do. Like, it never occurred to Randall before. And the really interesting and wonderful thing happened when we were shooting that scene. As we get to the point in the scene where Randall is saying, I'd buy the Quick Stop and reopen it myself, Jeff goes,
I think Randall is the guy who has that idea to open the store. I said, you know, we shot this montage, and I said to Kevin, Randall is thinking about life without Dante.
Like, this has been going through Randall's mind since the moment the fucking place burned down.
Randall would be thinking to himself, look, if he was staying here, we'd open the Quick Stop, we'd do this, and that would be his line of thinking. He should just fucking come out with it and be like, dude, we need to open the store.
And I was just like, that is fucking fantastic. Let's do that. And so we did a run through of it with playing it the exact same way as it does on the page, and just removing the, oh my God, yes, that's what I do. And just making him say, I'd buy the Quick Stop and reopen it myself, and then following it up with, that's what I do. Like, fuck you. You know, you push me into a corner, and this is what I have dreams too, or I have one, and this is it.
When we did the rehearsal, bam, out came the line, I'd buy the Quick Stop and open it myself. And he was like, that's it. Randall's idea.
It was astounding. Like, they were just fucking great. And then suddenly the scene was like, it was just a great fucking scene. It became my favorite scene in the movie at that point.
my best friend. And I love you. In a totally heterosexual way.
It was fucking like pitch perfect, every beat, every fucking moment where I was sitting there watching going like, all right, it's gonna stop sooner or later. He ain't stopping. Oh my God, he's hitting every note, just waiting to get to that fucking scene break. And you're like, oh Christ. Above and beyond anything I ever hoped for. That whole moment of his is probably the most emotional shit we ever put on film to me. It's just so fucking real and raw, and like he didn't just go there, he was there, and we all went along. It was astounding. He fucking knocked it out of the park, the fucking stadium, the universe. It was just amazing. Hey Tony.
Sure.
I think that's a LA production wrap on Jeff.
That is a work finish on Jen Schwalbach.
And if we could have gotten away with shooting the stuff that we needed to shoot in Jersey out here, like if we had mad money to throw up a quick stop ourselves, I might have been like, all right, let's do it. It was sad for me to leave Buena Park, you know, I really enjoyed it there and whatnot.
Yeah, this is it, man. This is kind of bittersweet, you know. It's sad to see this filming process end, and I'm glad we're doing it here. And the shot that we're shooting is the end of the film.
It was kind of nice, and I think Moj scheduled it that way.
It was a poignant way to go out to sort of shoot that as the last shot.
It was like, wow, this is it. We're doing the last scene. And I knew what the scene was. I knew it was Brian and I behind the counter. I know they were going to pull back a long dolly shot, and I knew at the end of it, Kevin's mom was going to be there.
My mom was in town in Jersey at that point, and I said, can you come out and be in that shot? Like, I want you to do the milkmaid thing again. Can you find that outfit or something close to it, you know, to that kind of tracksuit thing? And thankfully, my mother's a tracksuit wearing kind of gal, so she had something that approximated that outfit.
So sorry, I was going to say, do you want me to stock the cigarettes?
Whit told me right before we did one of the rehearsal shots that he had the song queued up. So I was like, all right, I mean, it's a little corny, but feel free, play the song. I'll cue you when it's time to go.
You know, I'd read in the script that it had, you know, the Soul Asylum song on it, but the part that caught me is as the camera started pulling back and doing its long dolly, they actually started playing the Soul Asylum song, The Misery. Holy shit, I got like a little lump in my throat. This is bad. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna fucking lose it. They're playing the fucking song, the dolly's pulling back. I was not ready for that.
Weird. You know, for something that seemed like a corny idea, it wound up being rather touching and whatnot. And so much so that when we actually went to picture, I was like, fuck it, play the song, man. That's kind of badass.
And then the camera starts to pull back, and we're going back into black and white. We're going back into this sort of universe. And, you know, and they're kind of realizing on their faces, they're kind of realizing like, oh my God, what have we done?
It took me right back to the first movie. And it was iconic to me. Like, I was like, that's phenomenal. By the time we hit my mother and she's pulling the milk out, I was like, wow, it's a beautiful thing, man. Like, I dreamed about that shot for years. Like, that was one of the few things that carried over from the original incarnation of Clerks 2. When I first had ideas about it, before it became Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, I knew how the movie would open with the fire, and I knew how the movie would end with that pullback that would go to black and white, and I knew it would be Misery. all came together so incredibly well.
Call it?
Let's picture wrap on Clerks 2!
I just got a name tag. Randall, employee. Retired.
It was sad to see it all end, you know? It was one of those very few times where it's just like, man, I hope the movie keeps going and going and going. But, you know, eventually everything comes to a close.
When you're young, the set becomes your home almost. Like, those are your friends, they're your family, that's where you live, and like, it's hard to tear yourself away, but like, I'm older now. You know, I'm a lot less inclined to be like boo-hoo-hoo, because I'm just like, hey man, I gotta fucking go to work tomorrow.
During production, Kevin cut most of the movie at the days in, between setups and at the end of every night. So when they went to New Jersey, we moved everything back to the post-production office, and he had most of the movie cut, so it took literally just a couple weeks before he was showing it to people.
Robert and Quentin were both able to kind of make the time, cruise by, and sit down and watch the flick.
One of the things that I loved so much about the very beginning of it was just taking in like, wow, look at them, they're so older. It was like the coolest to me. It was so poignant. Yeah. It's like it's funny and poignant.
Quentin's such a weird fan of film. Like, the dude loves film so much. And you would imagine, like, he would be like, I don't really remember Clerks, but he fucking remembered.
I think it's the greatest subject. It's terrific.
Did it feel slow in any places?
I thought that, like, the first half hour, I know it's like 100 minutes now, you want to tighten it up. I feel like there you probably lose the most to get you into it.
Right.
Like, Robert is kind of the editor of the two. He's like, if you're gonna look for stuff to cut, look in the first 20 minutes.
So I thought maybe that first 30 things could just be tightened up pace-wise.
What about that scene with him and her in the back office?
Oh, I love that scene.
It's kind of cool, isn't it?
That's the scene when the movie starts becoming a movie.
My whole philosophy is like, we'll keep him in the seats, give him the laughs before you whip the movie out.
Right. He kind of got us.
Right.
You know, then we get to say we hadn't seen him in such a long time, and you have, but we haven't. Right. So it's like, oh wow, look, there they are. That's them.
I'd never done that before, where I was like, have a filmmaker come in and watch an early cut of the flick, and it was great.
I actually think you could still take more out of that jail scene.
Yeah.
Because I kind of got to the end of it before they did.
When you say you got to the end of it before they did you call it where you're like, oh, I know what's gonna happen?
Oh no, not so much that they would own the store, but the fact that you know, they just keep going on the same argument again and again and again, waiting for Randall to have the idea.
Right.
It was more so than anything else, it was just two people seeing it, getting it, and digging it, you know, and two people that I respect, you know, immensely.
So we screened the movie in New York at the IFC. This was the second time we showed it in front of an audience.
I'm hoping to see some of Kevin Smith's, you know, normal diatribe, I guess. Like,
Clerks has always been my favorite film, so I've always been iffy about him doing a sequel. But from what
the great characters, the great dialogue, the great story, the humanness of it.
It would be interesting for me anyway to see where they are now, because I mean, we've all evolved, and I guess we'll feel like we've grown together.
And I would love to see him revisit his roots, but do it in a way where he's now a mature filmmaker instead of a low-budget filmmaker.
If you do want to bolt after the screening, before we get into like the chat about it, we're gonna hand out the cards, and you can all fill out the cards and shit like that. And then afterwards, we'll sit around and talk about the flick. But let's get into it now while everyone's ready to go. So back.
I absolutely loved how he put it all together, and what he trimmed and what he kept, and I'm really, really happy with how it came out. The audience loved it. Harvey and Bob loved it, especially Bob, who hadn't seen the movie before, but it really got those guys excited about it.
At one point, Bob told Kevin this is the best movie he's ever made.
you got the distinct impression, and Bob actually voiced it.
It's like you got, I get it. I mean, I just got it on every front. Just love it. It's just terrific. Better than everyone. It's almost like it all led to everything that is poured before.
He was like, I got to be honest. He's going, when I heard you were making this, I really didn't think much of it. I thought you were making a movie for your fans, and that'd be that. He's going, but you made a really beautiful movie. He's like, it's a wonderful film from beginning to end, and it's not just like a great sequel to Clerks. He's like, it's a great movie.
So now we're off to Skywalker Sound to do the final mix.
So here we are at gorgeous Skywalker Ranch. We've done every sound mix up here since Dogma.
You're just taking all your elements and kind of doing that final pass and trying any last-minute things. And
I don't even have to come up at all, but it's just a formality to make sure that there's nothing that doesn't sound out of place or whatnot. I'm gonna need you to go do some of this stuff.
Some more of that.
Bring it up and bring it down and bring it up. Bring up Liza's claps. And also, I want to work on the Atlanta song in the beginning. I want it bigger in the beginning, like right up top when it kicks in. It's sappy for about 5 minutes, and then there's a real big fuck you at the end. So it undercuts the sentiment, and I kind of dig this.
this is the version of the movie we want. In our minds, we're done. At this point, we are locked.
When we had like the first hour and 15 minutes of the movie cut together, we showed the footage to Harvey Weinstein. And Harvey right away fell in love with the stuff. And then he also said, it'd be great to do is take this movie to Cannes. And we never thought about that. We never thought about it as a festival film necessarily.
From our perspective, it's just like it's a waiting game. Like, you deliver them the film, and then they watch it, and then they go off and think about it.
And they announced the competitive films, and of course we weren't in it, but we didn't expect to be in it. Terry, I don't know how you pronounce it, Fremont, the guy who programs the festival, had called to request the copy of Clerks 2 back in Paris so he could watch it again with a younger audience to see about inclusion in the festival.
Which entailed sending our post supervisor, Leslie Rodier, over to France.
Everyone keeps saying, no, it's a great sign that they wanted to watch it again and that they haven't said, because they could have said no so many times.
There's still a few special screening slots available.
It was something that was thought about every day. Did we hear from him? I would ask Kevin, did we hear from him? And he's like, no.
And we're waiting to hear whether or not it's getting in there.
We started to get nervous and confused.
There were many times where it was like, all right, we're not in.
And, Kevin was humbled by having to wait.
We had given up on getting in.
Harvey kept promising. He was like, it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. I was like, dude, if they haven't said it yet.
And all of the announcements, I think, were made. And at the very last minute, while we were on family fucking vacation, the second one in 8 years, we're in Maui and we get the phone call.
Gail told me that Harvey called this morning. So I called him back, about a half hour ago. And I was kind of sweating calling him back because I thought I was going to get yelled at for something. And he said, I want you to write this down so you can put this in your blog, that I'm a god and I make things happen. Clerks 2 is officially part of the Cannes Film Festival 2006 out of competition midnight screening.
Apparently, this is the shit, and Cannes is the place to be.
By the way, it is Cannes when Clerks comes. It's not Cannes.
We got there on, I think, a Saturday, and then the Clerks screening was on the following Friday night. So we had a full week to bomb around Cannes and go see other screenings.
Just to see how busy the streets were and all these film events going on and posters and everything, it was all sort of surreal.
by the time we got there, we felt like we'd kind of been jammed in there for political reasons.
Opening up the book, the program, and like our movie wasn't listed. We were on the schedule, the official schedule, we weren't in the program book. Their explanation was like, we had went to press, you know, before your movie got in, so sorry. So it just felt like, man, we're just like, they don't want us here. It's just not the same. I mean, we were 20, early in our early 20s the first time we were here, and single, and we were just had gotten into the film business, and everything was new, and now it's like third time you're here. There's nothing like fresh or wonderful about it. I mean, it's an honor to have the flick at the festival because this is the mother of all film festivals, but I'd have just as soon stayed home. Felt like, man, what are we doing here? We're wasting our time. This is a horrible experience compared to like the last 2 times, particularly the first time, which was so amazing.
Just anxiety built with every day because a lot of the films that we thought would be media darlings or very well received were completely slammed.
Marie Antoinette, they very nearly killed people, you know, so it was like, they're a very vocal group.
They're booing a movie about a French queen. Like, what chance in hell does Clerks 2 have?
We were afraid of taking the same beating. We began to wonder how ours would go over.
You know, 12 years in, whole new concerns kind of open up. It's the 7th film we've done. We're coming off one that wasn't successful. There's a little more riding on it this time around. This is where the wonderful journey hits a wall and fucking everything's gonna go south.
It was just more nerve-wracking as the days ticked by.
I don't know, it's just a different feeling altogether. To be honest with you, I'll be very happy to go home. By the time we got to the day of the screening at Cannes, like I think me and Mose were just like, wow, we should have went to Sundance. It was a total waste of time. Here we are in Cannes, the morning of our premiere. This behind us is the theater where we'll be screening. It's the Debussy. It's the other theater in the Palais. Something bad's bound to happen. You know, like maybe the reviews come out and it's like, this is shit. The Catholic in me is waiting for punishment.
I think that Kevin really felt that this screening at Cannes would make or break the movie. He had so much sort of emotional baggage riding on the screening. It meant so much to him, and he had taken such a world of shit for making it that this was going to be the time that its success was determined.
We sort of reconvened again outside the hotel as we were waiting for our cars to pull up. And I swear he was getting like more and more pale, and like I'd never seen Kevin rattled like that before, and he was just sort of like, all right, man, I'll see you over there.
But on the ride from the hotel over to the screening, it was just dead silence in the car. Sort of the two of us, you know, gripping each other's hands and very sweaty palms, and, you know, him sweating to death in his tux jacket. To say he was very, very nervous would be an understatement. I think terrified, because everything that he felt so confident about could have been crushed in that moment, where he was so positive and the bottom had not fallen out of this movie. He had gotten to make the movie that he wanted to make with the people that he wanted to make it with, for the budget that he wanted to make it with, and everything had gone so well, and we had such a good time, and he felt so like it was a perfect experience for him. This is where it could have all changed. It all rested on that moment for him.
Today were it not for all these people standing to my left, each and every one of them an essential and integral part of this movie. I love these people. I don't even mean that in a bullshit Hollywood kind of way. I truly, truly love these people, even the boys. That makes me gay. So thank you, all of you, for taking the time and doing it. And you guys were wonderful. Big round of applause for these guys.
midst of the screening, I was like, this is playing better than fucking Clerks played when we were here or Dogma played when we were here. Like, this is a fantastic fucking screening. People were dialed in, man. They were laughing in all the right places.
That experience is a great feeling when you see that the audience is seeing the same thing that you see.
Begins. And once they stood and started applauding, I was like, that's fucking awesome. Once it kept going on and finally hit the 8-minute mark, I was just like, this is the best experience I've ever had at this film festival.
I just looked over at him and he was so proud. And I don't know if people understand what a long road it is for our entire family with these movies. It completely consumes our lives. And in that one moment, in that standing ovation, it all seemed worth it.
Being in that room for the 8-minute standing ovation was kind of like, wow. That was just incredible. It was an incredible feeling, you know, and one of those things where, you know, I'll take that with me in my grave, like one of the top 10 highlights of my professional career.
Vive la France!
All there is the release. It's a bunch of people making you focus on the release, making you focus on the opening weekend, making you focus on like the marketing and getting the...
Cutting those 30-second TV spots. I'm going out on the road on Monday for 2 weeks to do City by City press tour. Brian and Jeff left last night and they're on their press tour for 3 weeks.
Fucking A, I think we did 26 cities in 30-something days.
When I came up in this business, the New York Times was make or break. You know, you needed the New York Times to open your little independent movie. The reviews on Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back weren't stellar. This was the first time I got a bad review in the New York Times. The Jersey Girl review in the New York Times was even worse. But none of it mattered because the New York Times came back. New York Times gave us a great review, and it ended with like, you know, Clerks 2 may have a dirty mind, but it has a pure heart. And I was just like, bang.
I mean, Kevin's out on the road doing every possible thing he can, every piece of publicity he can. He's doing everything.
I mean, all things being relative, it's fucking grueling. I mean, it's good because everyone wanted to talk about the movie. That's a lot to do. I think the only thing I didn't do anything for was the Weekly World News.
Have a good night.
See you later. And that's that's all, folks. So tomorrow we spend most of the day in a press junket, and it's like from 8:30 till 4:30, just nonstop press. So right now we're in the midst of the TV junket part of today's press day, where I sit in this chair and different journalists cycle through in this chair. They come in and ask a series of questions. They all got like 5 minutes and whatnot. Sometimes I wonder if they even do anything with the clips. But this is the fucking rapid fire kind of. You got 5 minutes. Ask them about Ass to Mouth, and I'm like, Ass to Mouth is pretty hot, and then they move on. And then I go home, get showered, and head out to the premiere at the Dome. Closing in on the end of it all. You know, once it goes theatrical, it's kind of out of our hands at that point. Not the premiere, but getting the movie out there.
The tracking so far has been good, you know? I mean, it's not Pirates of the Caribbean. We're tracking very well for, you know, the size movie we are. We're tracking very well compared to the other movies on our weekend. As to how much it'll make this weekend, I mean, there's been talk of 10 million, 10 million, 10 million. that would make everybody very excited if it kind of even jumped a little bit farther than everybody thought.
So tonight was opening night, and the good folks at the ArcLight were very kind in letting me do Q&As after all the screenings. And tomorrow I head down to Comic-Con. I think I got a panel at 12 or 1 or something like that in the big room. This is like a 6,000-seater, and do Q&A for an hour and a half. And afterwards, they have some screenings at a cinema in Mission Valley called Ultrastar, and I'm going to do 3 Q&As after those night screenings as well. I figure if I can go to every theater in the country and do a Q&A, we would have a very strong opening weekend. Unfortunately, I can only get to 2 different theaters. I mean, this is the moment we worked for all this time to kind of get to this point where we kind of spit the movie out there into the world, and now it's out there. And that's the life of a filmmaker.
So our movie opens at $10 million. We open number 6, in the top 10. Based on what the budget was and what our marketing spending was, the movie's like, it's a fucking home run. Profitable, really profitable movie.
It's such a beautiful way to end it. Successful, well-respected, and leave it at that. It makes sense. Closure. We all need it.
It's no secret that I had some reservations about doing it. But at some point in watching the stuff that Kevin put together, it was like, this is a pretty good movie. Like I take myself out of it. Take myself out of it and say, all right, even if I wasn't in this movie, I would watch this movie, which is not something I can say for Clerks.
Our intention was to make a movie with heart and humor, and I think that we have had enough people get that. I don't see what could take that away from us now.
The whole road of Clerks 2 was just a series of fucking blessings and rose petals in my path. Man, it was phenomenal. Every dream was realized. Those dudes did a great job putting the movie out there. It just didn't pop beyond our core audience, which is fine. That's why we made it. I made it for me. I didn't give a fuck about anybody. As long as it was profitable for somebody, that's all I cared about. The movie performed theatrically exactly like Mosier and I predicted it would. That was the reason we made the movie for $5 million.
In the end, it's the day-to-day. It's like, what's the last year of your life been like? And if it's been great, or if it's been good, and it's been focused around this movie, then that's success.
Just wonderful experience. And I loved what we were shooting so much. I loved what we were getting. I was putting it together at night, and I loved the movie every step of the way. It was just like, man, this is shaping up to be better than I possibly dreamed, and I had high expectations. I cannot impart how much I love that movie, and how that movie is very much a part of me. I think it's one of the 5 smartest things I ever did was making Clerks 2. 12 years of filmmaking, as being a professional filmmaker, went right back to the beginning. So there's something nice about it because it's like palate's cleansed, plate is clear, now I can go in any number of other fucking directions. More so than I felt like at the end of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. If I hadn't made Clerks 2, I would forever be like, fuck, I wonder if I should have done Clerks 2. It would be haunting me in the back of my head. Having done it, I'm like, this is the end of the Askewniverse. I'm done telling those stories. Thinking about? Mommy giving you the rest of the candy, so you're working for candy?
That's it? No money? Just all candy?
Money!
Some money?
Money, 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 money.
What about donuts? You and me are on the same page. We work for food, kid.
We work for ice cream.
We work for ice cream. Put it right here. Excellent, excellent job. You were great. You are my favorite actress. After Mom. All right, let's get out of cold New Jersey.